first matchup we're going to discuss is the second leg of the first four, looking at the South region. Obviously, first four taking place in Dayton. Colorado is looking at this bracket right now. Colorado a 2-point favorite against Boise State in the first four on Wednesday. Eric, I mentioned this to you going back to a Twitter conversation we had a week or so ago. Mountain West teams 36 and 66 and 1 in the NCAA tournament since 2003, and that includes San Diego State's run dating back to last season, making it obviously to the championship game. My numbers have this right around Colorado minus 3.5. Haslam touches, I think it's Colorado minus 2.5. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, when we get to you on this one. But Derek, I want to start with you. I have some notes on this one, but you go first, and then we'll get to Eric here.
Okay, yeah. I do think Boise is kind of vulnerable in this matchup against Colorado. Their rim field goal percentage on defense is 65%, ranks in the 25th percentile per CBB analytics. And then on the flip side, you got Colorado, who just attacks the rim a lot. The Buffs are second in near proximity field goal attempts per game at just under 40. I just think it's a bad matchup here for Boise State a little bit. So I do kind of want to get in on Colorado. Colorado does have their freshman Cody Williams back from injury, and they're just getting healthier a little bit. It's kind of a team that's trending upwards, and they had a really good run in the Pac-12 tournament. I am going to place a bet on Colorado. I have to look and see what number we're going to get, but or see what the number is now. I'm seeing 2.5. I see 1-2 out there, so I think I'm going to place a bet on Colorado here. It's fun to fade the Mountain West in the tournament. So I think I'll take a bet on Colorado here.
What about you, Eric?
Some really balanced teams here where you're looking at Colorado 20th in offensive efficiency for me, 29th in defensive efficiency. Boise 34th on the offensive end, 42nd on the defensive end. As you mentioned before, I look at this game, I have Colorado roughly by about 2.5. The over-under is about 145. The momentum and the away from home metrics, both teams not fantastic in this regard. I think away from home Colorado I have as 347th in the country, 322nd for Boise State. Now that doesn't always mean that you're like really bad away from home. I always kind of say that like you can be elite at home and then be just good at away from home, and then it'll kind of make your away from home numbers look a little bad. But in this situation, the fact that Colorado is 347th in away from home leads me to tell people and say you're looking at a team that really bolstered its numbers by home performances, which means it's going to probably underperform playing away from home. But that's unfortunately kind of the same situation for Boise State as well. I still think, though, that momentum in the away from home heads a little bit towards Boise State, so I could definitely see this spread kind of drifting a little bit more closer to the center line, maybe Colorado by 2, but that's the way I'm looking at it right now. I'm thinking it's probably about a Colorado 2-point spread. I know you said 3.5, so it could be pretty close.
Yeah, I fair points about Colorado home court. It's really interesting just because we knock Boise State in the Mountain West, especially with that trend that I mentioned. And to preface, I'm not saying bet Colorado just because of the trend. Derek isn't saying that either, but Colorado also has the altitude advantage when they play at home. Boise obviously has that in the Mountain West, along with a bevy of other teams that play in that conference, the Mountain Best, according to some. Now, you mentioned some of the paint stuff, Derek, in this matchup. You look at Boise State, I want to look at one more thing when it comes to the interior play. They rank in the 91st percentile of percentage of points on second chance opportunities. Omar Stanley, Martin, and Degenhart obviously contributing to that category. Stanley, primarily one of the better rebounders in the country when you look at efficiency at both ends of the floor. But Colorado has the size to not only limit and diffuse Boise State's interior offense, but just being able to hold off Boise State on the offensive glass. Colorado ranking in the 93rd percentile in defensive rebounding percentage. You mentioned Cody Williams back in the Pac-12 tournament. I'm curious to see whether Julius Hammond is back. He's been out since about late February with that knee injury, and he provides some floor spacing off the bench, so an injury to monitor if Colorado can get back to full strength. Also, Boise, not really big on pressuring the ball or trying to generate turnovers, and Colorado ranking number 260 nationally in turnover percentage. So Colorado, their biggest offensive liability, likely isn't going to get tested in this game. I like Colorado here. I mentioned I make this game around -3.5, but I think Eric's point about home court advantage is definitely something to keep in mind. I'd be curious to see where the market is going to move. Maybe Derek, you mentioned there's 1-2 left on the board as we're recording this. Could drift back in Boise's direction. So just something to keep in mind. Maybe it closes -2. But any other thoughts here before we move on to the round of 64 games, guys?
Just going to throw it out there that 7 of the worst 8 performances this season for Colorado away from Boulder. Something to keep in mind.
Essentially, Derek, Eric is telling you to not bet Colorado. So
yeah.
How you feeling there?
Ironically, their second all those games in the other game that was actually the 8th game, which was a home game, was an understandable bad performance, which was Arizona. The worst performance of the season, both of them back-to-back, at Arizona and at home against Arizona. But the next 6 worst ones of the season, all away from Boulder for Colorado.
Yeah, that's tough. I think I'm gonna ride with Colorado though. They're trending upward, and I do like Eddie Lampkin down low. He's fun to watch down in the paint. And
KJ Simpson.
Yeah, I just think I'm gonna ride with Colorado here. That's scary though, the away from home stuff that you mentioned, but I think I'm gonna stick with the Buffs. So
and the stigma of the Mountain West. You cannot deny that. Except for the San Diego State team last year, that conference is 0-11 over the last 4 tournaments. So there's a reason that everybody in the Mountain West was basically 2 seed lines lower than expected today. That was one of the things I even tweeted earlier. I was like, oh my God, the committee hates the Mountain West. And then other people reminded me, well, not as much as the Big East, but still, we knew those 6 teams were getting in. I just couldn't believe where they were seated. They were 1 to 2 seed lines below across the board, with the exception of San Diego State, who has actually done something before, but everybody else was 1 or 2 seed lines off.
Yeah, I thought you were being sarcastic there with that tweet just because of the Big East only getting 3 teams in.
But that was, like I said, I kind of expected it. I thought the people were saying 3, and I thought they might throw a bone and get a 4th. But even in the official prediction, the one where I'm actually trying to predict the committee, I think I threw a bone to try to get Seton Hall in. I thought Seton Hall had a better resume than St. John's. But even then, they didn't get in. So it didn't surprise me that the committee only took in 3. What surprised me for the Mountain West was not that they got 6, but I was like, wow, I expected this to be a 6 and they got an 8. This team to be a 9 and they got an 11. It was just, everything was a seed line or 2 off for me across the board, with the exception of San Diego State.
All right, well, Eric is really trying to throw a blowtorch at my St. John's Red Storm and apparently your Colorado Buffs here. I'm
not going to be asked back.